The rain never stopped in Ypres. It fell in thin, relentless sheets that blurred the horizon and turned the fields into seas of mud. The war had chewed the earth to pieces, and yet somehow life still moved among the ruins, barely, stubbornly, like a heartbeat refusing to quit. In a makeshift hospital tent, pitched on a ridge of broken ground, Nurse Evelyn Moreau worked by the light of a single lantern. The canvas walls trembled with every distant explosion. She'd long stopped flinching at the sound of shell fire. The air was thick with the stench of antiseptic, blood, and fear. Cots lined both sides of the tent, each one holding a piece of someone's son, brother, or husband. Evelyn moved between them like a shadow, her white apron stained brown and red. She didn't speak much anymore. Not because she had nothing to say, but because words had begun to feel useless here. "Eve," called Dr. Lang from the far end of the tent, his voice ragged from exhaustion. "We've got another coming in." She turned as two stretcher-bearers stumbled through the flap, carrying a young man whose uniform was soaked with rain and blood. His left leg was nearly gone. His eyes rolled back in his head, breath coming in wet gasps. "Shelling near the ridge," one bearer panted. "He's the only one who made it out." "Set him down," Lang ordered. He looked at Evelyn. "Morphine." Now she moved quickly, her hands steady despite the chaos around her. The morphine needle found its mark, and the boy's breathing began to slow. She could see the name stitched onto his uniform. Private Samuel Reeves. 19, maybe 20. The same age as her brother had been before Verdun took him. Dr. Lang wiped his brow, streaking blood across his forehead. "We'll need to amputate." Evelyn nodded, already preparing the instruments. The metallic clink of tools cut through the drone of rain. The operation began. There was no time for anesthesia beyond the morphine, no luxury of comfort. Evelyn worked with mechanical precision, handing tools, pressing gauze, and meeting Lang's eyes only when necessary. Outside, artillery boomed again. The tent shuddered, lanterns swaying, casting the scene in trembling shadows. When it was done, the leg was gone. The boy was alive, but barely. Lang slumped back, his voice a whisper. "You'll need to watch him through the night." Evelyn nodded. "I will." He left her there, alone with the rain and the wounded. Hours passed. The other nurses slept when they could, the moans of the dying fading into background noise. Evelyn sat by Samuel's bedside, watching his chest rise and fall. Every so often, she dabbed his forehead with a wet cloth. His face was pale as chalk, lips cracked from thirst. At one point, his eyes fluttered open. He stared at her, unfocused. "Am I dead?" Her voice came softly, almost a whisper. "No, not yet," he smiled weakly. "Then you're an angel." Evelyn said nothing. She simply looked at him, the corner of her mouth twitching into something between sorrow and pity. Outside, thunder rolled across the fields, and Evelyn Moreau, the silent nurse who had buried her words in the mud of Flanders, kept vigil through the night, guarding the fragile breath of one boy among thousands. Morning arrived like an afterthought. Pale light filtered through the canvas, washing the tent in gray. The rain had eased, but the sky remained heavy, swollen with unspent sorrow. Evelyn sat where she had been all night, her back aching, eyes rimmed with fatigue. Private Reeves still breathed, his face damp with fever. She'd changed his bandages 3 times, whispering small prayers she no longer believed in. Dr. Lang appeared just after dawn, his sleeves rolled and eyes sunken. "He's still with us." Evelyn nodded. Lang allowed himself a weary smile. "You're a miracle worker, Moreau." She didn't reply. She turned back to her patient, wiping the sweat from his brow. "Don't you ever speak?" Lang asked after a pause. Evelyn hesitated. "Only when there's something worth saying." Lang chuckled softly. Then I suppose you've been in the wrong place for that. He moved on to the next cot, leaving her alone once more with the hum of distant artillery and the soft groans of men fighting sleep and pain. By midday, Reeves stirred again. His voice was faint but clearer. "What's your name?" "Evelyn." "Evelyn," he repeated, like he was tasting the word. "You sound French." "I am." He looked at her for a long moment, then said, "My mother's name was Evelyn." She looked down at him, unsure how to respond. He smiled faintly, the kind that flickered like a candle in the dark. "I guess that means I can't die now," he said. She almost smiled, but stopped herself. "Rest. Talking will only tire you." He didn't listen. "How long have you been here?" "Too long." Reeves sighed. "You sound like you've seen hell." Her gaze drifted to the tent flap, where the rain still dripped in soft rhythms. "I have." He didn't ask more. She didn't offer it. That night she dreamed of Verdun again. The fields on fire, her brother's laughter swallowed by thunder, the letter that never came. She woke to the sound of shell fire and the stench of smoke. The war never slept. Days turned into weeks. Reeves grew stronger, though the absence of his leg haunted him. Evelyn helped him relearn how to sit, how to eat, how to accept what was left. He filled the silence between them with stories. His father's bakery in Kent, the way the sea smelled in summer, the girl he'd promised to marry when he came home. Evelyn listened, her hands always moving, washing, stitching, wrapping. "You never talk about yourself," he said one afternoon as she changed his bandages. "There's nothing to tell." "I don't believe that." She looked up at him then, eyes tired but sharp. The war took everything that was worth telling. He wanted to ask more, but the words died on his tongue. That night, another bombardment hit the outskirts of Ypres. The ground shook, the tent lights flickered, cries echoed through the night. Evelyn rushed from cot to cot, her body running on instinct, tending to wounds, stopping bleeding, calming men who couldn't be saved. Through it all, Reeves watched her. Even as explosions tore the night apart, she never faltered. Her silence wasn't emptiness, it was strength, like steel forged in grief. When morning came, the tent was quiet again. Evelyn sat outside for the first time in weeks, watching smoke rise over the distant line. Reeves joined her, leaning on a crutch. He looked at her and said, "You should leave this place someday." She shook her head. "I wouldn't know where to go." "There's always somewhere." She didn't answer. Her gaze stayed fixed on the horizon. Autumn crept into the ruins. The leaves, what few remained, fell in spirals of gold and ash. The guns had begun to quiet. Rumors whispered of armistice. Then the influenza came. It swept through the camp like invisible fire. One by one the soldiers fell sick, not from bullets, but from breath itself. The nurses worked day and night, but death was faster. Reeves caught it on the third day. Evelyn found him trembling with fever, his skin pale and slick with sweat. His eyes fluttered open. "Guess I wasn't meant to make it home after all," he murmured. She gripped his hand. "Don't say that," he smiled weakly. "Promise me something." "What?" "When this is over, when the guns stop, go home. Find something worth living for again." Her throat tightened. She wanted to tell him she had no home left, that her parents were gone, her brother buried somewhere under French soil, that this war was all she had, but she couldn't. She simply said, "Rest. You'll get through this." He didn't. By morning, he was gone. She closed his eyes gently, folding his hands over his chest. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to cry. Silent, shaking tears that fell onto his blanket. Outside, the bells began to ring. Word spread like wildfire. The war was over. Evelyn stood in the doorway of the tent, watching soldiers embrace, weep, and cheer. She felt nothing. only the strange quiet of a heart too tired to feel. Weeks later, the hospital tents were emptied. The wounded were sent home, the dead buried in neat rows under wooden crosses. Evelyn stayed behind, cleaning instruments that would no longer be used. Dr. Lang approached her one evening. "You should go, Moreau." "The war's done." She looked at him, her face unreadable. "Wars don't end. They just change shape." He sighed. "You've done enough." More than anyone, she removed her blood-stained apron and folded it carefully. Not yet. That night she walked beyond the tents into the shell-torn fields. The moon hung low, pale and cold. She stopped where the earth was still scarred with trenches and whispered into the wind. "For all of them," she said. "For my brother. For Samuel. For everyone who never got to go home." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was sacred. When dawn came, she returned to the camp and boarded a train bound east. No one knew where. Some said she joined the Red Cross in Belgium. Others claimed she vanished into the ruins of France, tending to the forgotten long after the armistice. But those who had known her remembered one thing: the quiet nurse who never spoke unless she had to, the one who stayed when everyone else left. And though history forgot her name, the soldiers she saved never did. In the mud and silence of a world reborn from fire, Evelyn Moreau, the silent nurse, kept her final promise.